And then it started to become, evolve to a platform for all of the wearable technologies, similar to Apple Watch, Fitbit, more specialized products from a broad range of health, sports, fitness devices, and so on. Using these technology, your game, your workout, hiking can be viewed on your phone, online, and on your wrist. And you can even, be friends with someone and compete with them, and so on. It's very similar to the augmented reality theory that we have spoken about earlier, because it simply takes, real life things and put it just in front of you. What else do we have? Yeah. So other notable designs were machine-to-machine communication driven by internet connected devices would be the leading driver of mobile connections by 2020. So this is what we call the Internet of Things, or IoT. Internet of Things is a phenomena growing rapidly in both home and industrial settings. Even if the word spam has never really caught on, we have this IoT, Internet of Things. But however, there are increasing concerns about, the misuse of the Internet of Things, basically being completely communicated to everything at once. So as more and more of these devices enter our homes, you guys, I'm pretty sure you know Alexa, Siri, all of those. They raise increasing concerns about security. There's the same people often forget, about their passwords. So it's the same for everything. The device might be insecure, misusing this device, which is, people watching others without knowledge, failures such as, again, your internet connected thermostat fails a firmware update, and then, it does not turn on, the heat or the cold AC or whatever. So as much as Internet of Things made things very, very connected to one another, it is still concerning because of everything disconnected. Right. So again, a question that you guys might get here is, explain what is meant by the Internet of Things, and what are some of the concerns that it gives community. Kids and phones. We can take kids and phones, and then you guys can take a short break. So kids and phones. So North Americans, starting with, going a little bit behind, its phones obviously started, with business, it started with the government, and so on. And then they changed in the 21st century as mobile phones evolved to become more affordable. They have reached, a high level of popularity with young people. So as a group, young people, of course, like you guys, they value the privacy, the independence, and so on. So given that the new device with unexpected capabilities, such as, of course, text messages, it quickly figures out how to use this capability to a maximum advantage. So again, a thing here that, or, a note here that I want you to think of. Remember we talked about the learning curve and the adoption curve. I think it was in chapter 2. The learning and adoption curve for a new medium. So how did young adults were able to adopt, as you can see the word over here, broad adoption? What was the adoption curve of mobile phones by young people? North Americans here have seen broad adoption of mobile phones by young people in the last 2 decades. First of all, the adoption was slow compared to, other areas in the world, perhaps related, in Canada, the prices were a little bit high, and there was incompatibility between text messaging systems of, major providers, and the ready availability of landlines, with many homes having what they call, a teen line as a second phone line. Funny thing, we did have a second phone line at home, and sometimes I would use it because, I watched American movies. So I told my mom, look, they have a teen line. They have their teenager kid use the phone at their room alone. And my mom is like, no, it does not matter what the movies tell you. You are not going to use the second line. So it was still up to my parents. However, in other parts of the world, other young people were early adopters. You guys remember early adopters from the tetrad from the chapter 3? Oops. Early adopt the diffusion of innovation model. So other parts of the world were still early adopters of the where did we go? Yeah, so telephone companies again facilitated this process. It was easy. There was pay-as-you-go plans. There was inexpensive basic phones. There was low prices of text messages. So young people quickly adopted this technology as a way of getting in touch and staying in touch, arranging social events, romantic contact, and even sharing homework and even sometimes even cheating by their mobile phones. Funny enough, Canada initially lagged. Remember the word laggers from diffusion of innovation? They lagged behind other developing countries in this. So again, a question that you guys might find here is, compare between, the different uses and approaches of mobile phones, or why do you think different kids around the world had different approaches to mobile phones and so on. And then in other cultures, in here, last point, such as Korea and Japan, found in the mobile phone a tool for liberation from their parents, a little bit of freedom. It was even some considered as a part of a revolution in the youth culture. The phone has brought, mobility to young people, and it has contributed to a last-minute arrangement orientation. Right? What ruined it here? So yeah, we were just saying this part, as much as they brought mobility, it has contributed to a last-minute arrangement, featuring linguistic subgenres and shorthands. There is something that it came up, which is the youth slang. But some of the abbreviation adopted in the text speak have migrated into the wider culture and have even some spread around the world, such as the words, BRB, which is like be right back, or TYT, which is take your time, or thank you, TY, all of those. So slang here, the definition is not just a way of keeping messages private from parents, but it also facilitates a form of ad hoc compression, right? So text slang, it makes things quick and compressed and small, and then you send it. So text slang aids the speed of composition since messages were often composed on the traditional telephone keypad. And then the QWERTY was invented, which made things a little bit easier. And as a result, we had the predictive text happen, of course, to bigger screen and touch screen. But also that predictive text, as much as it's an amazing invention, but it of course had its drawbacks. So there were a lot of alarms raised that typing short messages full of abbreviations would lead to the downfall of the English language and the inability of today's youth to make themselves, understood. Nearly all students, but again, when nowadays, a lot of people were like, if you're going to talk like that with a predictive text, how are you going to write proper English? But, thankfully, students are still able to distinguish and understand the difference between texting and, writing proper academic term papers. So finally, I think this is the last slide that we have here. There was ways, again, in ways in which mobile devices were used positively and negatively. Youth adoption of mobile phones may have, been very anticipated at first, but both system operators and manufacturers were quick to act upon the perceived needs and interests of young people. These companies, funny enough, began to provide plans and handsets that suited these new consumers. So in a sense, the role of the youth in the evolution of mobile phones and mobile carriers can be seen as an example of the social shaping of technology that we discussed in chapter 3. I don't remember if we already discussed the social shaping of technology or is it in the video, but yeah, once you watch the video, you'll be able to understand the social shaping here of how, the social shaping approach, it considers technological change and development from the perspective of the users. So here again, the users, the young kids or the young adults, they were the ones who were able to change the look of mobile phone. Again, companies were able to give them what they need, the looks. Even the companies were able to give them specific data plans, internet, phone calls, and so on. So again, how users here, the young adults, it was their role in the further development of a new technology. The interests and activities of mobile users have been huge, enormously important to the way in which mobile phones evolved, again, especially in the case of text messages. There was, the huge increasing use of text messages, or what we call SMSs. It gave rise to amazing fortunes and many new businesses, such as ringing tone. We talked about this last time, the ringing tone purchased over the network. Not to mention, user innovations and other social practices. So it will, in retrospect, giving the parallel growth of, email, internet-based short messaging systems such as, MSN Messenger, it is perhaps not surprising that SMS was such a hit. Everything was making it doable, was making it easier. Again, so in a lot of ways, it was the idea that it was connected to the social cultural changes, especially with the social independence of young people. There was, in a way, they start to use their own language, such as emojis and so on. But of course, there was a lot of concerns. There was, health concerns, such as something funny that is called texture thumbs, because of, how you guys text and you type so much with your thumb. It actually starts, the skin is abrasive, it might even cut short, and so on. There is the disruptive of sleep patterns, staying up late, being interrupted while sleeping by phone buzzing, or checking a new text in the middle of the night, contact with inappropriate people, cheating on tests, and the expense, of course the expense, especially when the young people who are on a plan, and a plan that is paid by their parents go over the limit, especially, with young children. While, some of the, so again, a question that you might find over here is explain what are some of the concerns of texting, especially on young people. What are some of the concerns over here? So this is one point, but on the other point, while parents are concerned about how the phone might harm the children, as a parent, I'm worried that my kid is gonna spend so much time on the phone, or he's gonna talk to not very good people, and so on. So while parents are concerned about how the phone might harm their children, the parents are also the ones who are making the purchasing decisions, and paying the bills for the younger children. It gives parents, of course, peace of mind to know that their child could call them whenever they want. Given the almost non-existing numbers of payphone, the child can text their parents. It was easier. The internet-based chat applications such as Facebook, Messenger, Slack, and so on. So it is also, again, an easy way to stay in touch with kids. But on the other hand, as much as it's, beneficial, cell phones are definitely implicated on the what is called helicopter parents phenomena. Have you heard about the term helicopter parents? This term? Anyone has heard about this? Menika, go ahead.
Helicopter parenting is a style of parenting where the parents are like watching everything. Like they try to keep track of every detail of their kids' lives, and yeah, it's basically controlling.
Controlling, exactly. So it is called, from a psychological perspective, just to explain this for everyone else, it is, it is the extra parent state for, for being support. However, they take it to another level and they hover over their decisions and their life-making choices like a helicopter. The best way to describe helicopter parenting is, the hyper involvement in a child's life. So a question here that I want you guys to think of: how do you think mobile enabled helicopter parenting? I'll give you a break. So I'm gonna write the question down, and then is everyone able to see the slides and hear me properly?
Yes, we do.
All right, great. So, as you guys can tell from now, mobile phones and networks are big businesses, right? Recent data suggested there are over 7.9 billion lines in operation worldwide. So, with a global penetration rate of 104%, meaning there are more mobile subscriptions worldwide than there are people in the world. Many have multiple mobile phone lines, with an increasing use of, security services, car safety system, and, similar to the spine that we mentioned earlier, the numbers always continue to increase. Mobile networks. So again, mobile networks are considered a part of national interest of a country and often taken a national character or receive special treatment within their home country. Mobile networks are also, involved in multiple aspects of public safety and even national defense, calling, 911, constructions of regional and national data networks, managing operations of police and security forces, all of those. So these networks are often regulated, they are employ large unionized forces and have close ties to strategically important industries, such as microelectronics, electronic software, computing. And then we have what we call here network operators. Oops. Let me just get where is it? We have what we call here network operator. The definition is also in the glossary at the back of the book. So let me just read it real quick. It says 332, I believe. No, it is on, yeah, 333. So it's a provider of service to mobile telephones. The provider arranges for the radio spectrum license, creates the billing and customer service functions, install the infrastructures for both transmitting and receiving calls. So until 2009, there was just 3 big Canadian cell service landscape: TELUS, Rogers, and Bell. So again, you can have a question is like multiple choice, who were the 3 that we have had in 2009. Each also has a subsidiary discount brand that it uses to give itself increased access to the market. So for example, TELUS owns Kudo. Bell operates the Virgin brand under the Virgin in the United Kingdom. Ontario, Bell Canada has launched an additional subsidiary, Lucky Mobile, and so on. These large companies have recently been joined by a group of newcomer outfits, the most well-known of which was Wind Mobile, now known as Freedom Mobile. Another competitor is Mobilicity, launched in 2009, but then it was purchased by Rogers. So again, they were monopolizing everything and later closed. These companies are part of a group operating a new electromagnetic spectrum license that were auctioned off in 2008 with, what we call regulatory preference given to new entrants, virtually ensuring that the same spectrum will go to new companies. However, when the new first digital cell phone license were allocated, preferences was also given to new companies. So of the 2 that actually launched service, Clearant was purchased by TELUS, and then Fido was purchased by Rogers. So again, large companies were still eating up smaller companies that existed. Mobile networks and mobile companies, in Canada, generally build their own radio towers and maintain their own links back to switching. So again, it was a way of monopolizing everything, monopolizing all process of waves and signals and so on. So they want to avoid, again, going back to switching. There was an interconnection to phones from other companies and, the billing operations. There was some tower sharing between those 3 companies, and the regulation has mandated that from the Canadian Telecommunication and Radio Commission. It has a lot, the CRTC, I think. So they regulated that. So in the future, they said that towers had to be shared equally to lessen the proliferation of towers and to ensure that newcomers are able to build their new networks in reasonable length of time. So again, the government wanted to do that in a way to avoid monopolization. There's also roaming agreements with similarly mandated to ensure that our new company does not have to build a whole countryside network just to get started. In other countries, for example, in Egypt, towers are actually a separate business and mobile operators typically just lease space on towers. So in Egypt, we have also three big companies. The towers are built by the government and the three companies are private and they lease space on each of those towers. So let's talk about the devices themselves now. So a Canadian company made a research called Research in Motion RIM. Let me go just zoom in a little bit. So Research in Motion, or RIM, or called BlackBerry. RIM was at one time a huge leading manufacturer of smartphones in the world. I think I've asked you guys last time if you guys have had BlackBerries, and some of you said yes, I have used it. So currently now, BlackBerry was so huge in the 2000s, like maybe 9 or 10 or 11, but currently BlackBerry is almost gone, existing, just as a brand on a few Android phones and, some software platform with some, relatively new users. But currently there is literally no Canadian manufacturers of cell phone. None of them is Canadian. The only remaining North American player in the game is Apple, which is based in California. We have Motorola in Illinois, was briefly owned by Google, but is now Lenovo company, which is based in China. And then we have, of course, other large players such as Nokia. So Nokia was also sold to Microsoft, but it's still based in Finland. So part of it is huge European part and largely focused on its brand and network infrastructure equipment. And then we have Sony Mobile, or Sony Ericsson, that was half Swedish, half Japanese. LG and Samsung from South Korea. HTC from Taiwan. So look at this, there's literally nothing Canadian. Of course, there are small players, mainly in China and in India, but they produce, basically they produce what we call a profusion of phones, but they're just mainly followers. So they use an Android operating system and they create, different looks of the phone itself. So Nokia may have been the largest at that time, but after the iPhone came out, it had difficulty competing in the smartphone category, which is remarkable because Nokia more or less created the concept of smartphone with its communicator and the N series phones. Any questions so far, guys? Are we all doing okay? Oh, smartphones. So the smartphone unleashed the most important aspect of mobile businesses, the application. Of course, that is the biggest. After texting, the application is the second biggest aspect of mobile phones. Can everyone hear me? Because it says that my internet is lagging. Yeah, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
So prior to smartphones, there were a few things that you could add to a mobile phone. Again, there was very limited. Again, we had a conversation about this last time. The ringing tones, just adding small features to your phone, but there's really nothing much that you could add. So at that time, you can, again, there's minutes that people could use in talking. Some people were willing to pay for non-standard commercial ringing tone, having a fun ringing tone. You can, play with the, what is called, you can play with the look of the phone. You can add some funny things to your phone, some stickers, but that was it. But there was the application, the app. So now users, they can install, you have the Apple, what's it called? The Apple Store, you can have the Android phone, and so on. So previous smartphones had apps that could have users install them, but Apple's embrace of apps, they were not included in the initial version of the iPhone, which was very silly. It launched an industry of spectacular diversity and stunning growth. By then, Apple and Android app users combined actually have more than 4.4 million different apps available for download. That's a ridiculous number. Most of them are free, or some of them are very expensive, and people are actually willing to give them a try. So not only we are in this box. So not only do they provide, income to the operators of the app stores, the social engineers who created those applications, who typically, of course, take a percentage of the fees, but then there's additional function that drives people to use their phones more than often. Obviously, more apps you have on their phone, the more time you spend on your phone. For more things, hence users are more likely to spring for a data package, right? Like your data has ended because you're listening to so much music on Spotify, or you're downloading so many games, and so on. Which actually brings us to that data package. It brings us to mobile subscription. So a cell phone company provides service to end consumers both through monthly and prepaid, so pay as you go. There's options, of course, to business customers, large accounts who pay on a monthly basis. So overall, let me just zoom here. Phone costs may be subsidized to entice users into signing longer contracts. So some of them actually move on to 2 years now, during which time of the phone will be locked to the carrier from which it was purchased. So you can buy a really good phone for installments, some for $45 a month, maybe up to $100 a month, but you're under the condition that you cannot sell your phone and you cannot change your carrier plan till then. All right, so at present, all three of the big companies in Canada use similar underlying networks. So in theory, users can roam from one network to another, but of course, although agreements are not in place in all cases. Service from a mobile carrier typically includes the purchase of a service bundle with a certain number of minutes of voice calls, some text messages, and perhaps some internet or data access. So for example, you can have a bundle before taxes from $15 to $50. You can add more 10 or 20 or 30 for more data, internet browsing. However, if you exceed this amount that you have paid for, extra charges are applied by the minute, by the message, and they can be extremely high at that time. And because of it's now accessible, it's affordable, it's easy, it brings us to how you guys use it, mobile phone usage patterns. So if you guys notice here, those are every point takes us to the other. The smartphones, how you use it, subscriptions, your usage patterns, which we're going to talk about now. So mobile phone usage and patterns. So they're not just one. So again, mobile, the thing is about mobile that they are just one of so many screens that people interact with every day. You interact with so many screens in your life. There's television, there's tablet, there's computer, there's laptop, right? Of course, the television, as just an example, is television. You open it, you switch it on. I'm sorry, you chill on the couch. So it's a very lean back type of media consumption. Right. The mobile phone, however, is tied into the television experience in a number of ways. So I'm going to give you some examples and tell you if you guys do that or not. So for example, you chat with your friends while you're watching a TV program. Any one of you does that? You have your phone in your hand, but your eyes, you're going back and forth between this TV show that is on the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, right. So I think most of us does that. You have your phone, you might not be even chatting with your friends, you might just be very chilling, just scrolling over Facebook or Instagram, and you're watching, or you're more like listening to the TV show in the background. TV programs even encourage providing feedback, as different reality shows where audience members are allowed to vote on the best singer, the best dancer, whatever it is. Then of course we have those what we call service providers, and app developers have made it possible for users to start and stop a personal video recorder remotely from their, wait, am I reading from the, yeah. Yes, did someone wanted to ask something?
You were cutting off earlier.
I were cutting off. So I actually decided to, I'm recording the video. So I'm recording it right now. So I will upload it to you guys, just in case you want to listen to it again, because it's been cutting off. So I hope this makes it better. All right. So yeah, we were talking about, how you can pause or play, or using a personal video recorder remotely from your phone, or you pick up a show to watch using a schedule guide, through an application. You can go even to the movies through an application of your phone. So for example, owners of an iPhone can use AirPlay and an Apple TV to send video from their phone to a connected TV. Many people nowadays are starting what is called a sequentially screen media content. In other words, they start on one device. Like for example, let's say you're coming back from work or college and you want to watch a movie on Netflix on your phone, okay? So you're gonna watch part of the movie, and you gonna start it in the SkyTrain. And then by the time you reach home, you're gonna switch watching to a television, so or your smartphone or your tablet or your computer. So this interaction and the handoff from one device to another, like you're jumping from one from one device. So you start on your phone and then you go to your computer, has been identified as a huge key growth for mobile software area, and of course the hardware makers. And then other phenomena that grow. So first we have the sequentially screen, and then we have the multi-screen behavior. Is it written over here? No, it's not written over here, but please take notes. So the multi-screen behavior of consumers. When people are using a smartphone, they are often using another device. Like we just mentioned, when you're chatting with your friends and then you're watching a TV show. Over 90% of consumers will interact with multiple screens during the day, either sequentially, start watching on a bus and then you continue on a laptop or smart TV when you arrive home, or simultaneously, meaning that you are tweeting or chatting or checking your Facebook while watching a game or a show on TV. All right, so again, there is one screen involved or another in another way, but most of the time there's always one or like minimum two screens in your area, right? So what really matters with mobiles? So the mobile industry is huge. It's changing rapidly. And with these changes, there are also significant challenges ahead. Right. The most notable shift in mobile phones from a new media perspective is that it's just as the mobile phone has become a full player in the new media space. So because most of the time when you think of new media, you automatically just go to think about mobiles. So by virtue of its user interface and ability to display and record full motion video and audio, it has been joined by an army of other mobile devices, such as, again, online gaming and, playing online with other people, ebook readers, netbooks that have either, built-in or, plug-in cellular data connections. Some of these devices that also appear to be under a threat by the popularity of mobile phones, such as, again, we've talked about this before, cameras in particular, getting wireless capability either built-in or through memory cards with Wi-Fi capability. We have more stuff like tablets. Now they're more flexible and they appear to be more polished and more nicer, to compete significantly with smartphones, laptops, and, ebook readers. But now the distinguish between different things, such as I'm making here, other devices and the phone is the ability to make a high quality voice calls. This is being washed away or moved to the side by many of these other devices that are now able to make voice and video calls, such as messages, FaceTime, WeChat, WhatsApp, and Zoom, and whatever. I want you guys to think about it. When was the last time you actually made an actual phone call through the phone itself, not through an application? When was the last time you did that? Where is everyone today?
Yesterday, I think I called my sister from
You-
my from my job to take me like Yeah.
Right. So you called the sister on your normal call.
Yep.
Melika said to call customer support, which makes sense. The same thing, I almost call most my family and friends. I do call them on an application, again, such as Skype or Zoom or Facebook, rather than if I want to call customer services Canada, I'm going to call them on the normal landline. All right, where are we? So, all of these, it makes it really difficult not difficult, but rather challenging for engineers to play more with the, again, upgrading and updating the mobile device as a voice, as the foundation of making phone calls. So the former dividing line between mobile and portable, a mobile being something you could use as you move around, and portable being something that you can move and then use. So a laptop is a portable because you cannot use laptop when you're moving, right? So this, distinction and the dividing line is being broken down by ever speeding wireless local area networking, which is the LAN via Wi-Fi, and then the growing availability of mobile hotspots. It's everywhere, in restaurants and malls, on planes, trains, automobiles, all of these. So for example, car manufacturers nowadays, train operators and airline, they're all investing heavily in enabling the always-on connection to their mobile environments. The result to date is an interesting combination of blurred lines. There is both increased mobility of generic or non-mobile computing devices, and on the other hand, increased capabilities of mobile devices like iPhones and Androids. So again, think about what kind of uses that you do with a mobile phone versus having the exact same qualities on a laptop or in a tablet. How are we doing so far, everyone? Just give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you're all doing okay. All right, we have 7, 9. We have 9. Where's the rest? We have like 21 students. Where's everyone else? All right. So obviously, we have significant, amazing uses. Of course, they're gonna come with a price. So there are significant controversies related to the health, environmental, social, and cultural implications of any new technology. So first off, they are implicated in a variety of health concerns. So because of the nature of the electromagnetic energy used for almost all consumer technologies, it is actually very weak, very ionizing, meaning that there's little in the way of a proven link to human health. So the phone itself, the waves and electromagnetic, they say that the phone itself has little to no harm to the human health. Of course, it's funny, when our parents tell us like, I'm having a cold or I'm having a headache, they'll be like, it's from your phone, right? Like whatever you have is from your phone. But that's another story. On the other hand, because so many people use wireless mobile devices and they use them so heavily from such an early age, the companies that manufacture and regulate these devices would be sensible to make, obviously a prudent approach, making it easier and safer because, again, it's implemented everywhere in your lives. Significantly, no surprisingly, the most significant vector of harm from the use of mobile devices is not the radiation, but the tendency of mobile devices to divert your attention away from what you should be focusing on. Big example is texting while driving or walking. Texting, we're talking. And a big number, 25% of all traffic accidents in the United States is because of texting or talking on mobile phones. Every province and territory in Canada, actually funny, has a distracting driving ban. It was made in 2017, meaning that, if you take away this, like if you do use your phone while driving, you can, pay a penalty or pay a fine, or sometimes even, the revoking of the whole driver's license. A study in 2018 in UBC, University of British Columbia, it found out that people actively use their mobile devices while They walk slower and less steady than other pedestrians, which can lead to increased safety risks. Other research found that the drivers interacting with text-based content on their phones are 8 times more likely to be involved in a crash. 27% of fatal crashes only in BC were due to driver being distracted. So, in general, Canadians do feel that texting while driving is one of the biggest threats to their personal safety on the road, and 1/3 admit to have texted while sitting at a stoplight, even though they know it's unacceptable. A secondary area for concern, we're on the last point over here, in which cell phone towers are perceived by people living nearby. So when a tower is planned for in a sensitive area, such as near a school, people in the area often object. They have caused considerable anxiety and threats of lawsuits because of the perceived health risks. Again, there's nothing really proved whether these towers, does it actually harm people or not, but generally. Environmental concerns. So at one level, mobile technologies factor an ongoing erosion of the aesthetic aspect of the environment, both natural and human-made. Cell phone and other radio towers also affect, wildlife, especially birds, which become entangled in the wires or confused by blinking lights. However, in rural areas, cell phone antennas are typically affixed to tall towers, sometimes, in the abandoned radio and television broadcast towers. And these situations actually happening, they are disruptive to the local and migrating birding populations. While the harm done to natural or architectural beauty as well as wildlife should not be underestimated, there's a far more serious concern of mobile phones from actually not the degradation of soil, water, and air. However, it is because of the manufacturing, the use, and the disposable of the devices. So again, it's not about building towers and rimming of the wildlife versus how is it manufactured, how is it used, and the disposable of it. So we have some elements. Again, I can ask you a question is of mention some of the environmental concerns of mobile phones. So first off, we have here is the components. So they include electronic components that are manufactured from rare earth elements, which are sourced in conflict zones, and as such are subject to significant concerns regarding human rights and environmental regulations. Other points that we have here is the high carbon load in the form of transport energy that goes into moving parts to factories and finished products to consumers, which takes us to the next one. They have moved increasingly toward a fashion mentality in which phones are not a necessity that I need to stay in touch, but rather an element of style, and they're actually replaced more than once a year for reasons that go beyond functionality just because there's a new one coming out. Actually, I found out that there's over 150 million phones being thrown every year in the United States alone. The eventual disposal and recycling of mobile phones is not only a very early stage in most countries, meaning that mobile phones actually cannot be recycled, but it's also very difficult. It is dangerous. It is very dirty. That is framed out to people in developing countries. So we're talking in like China, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, especially the rural and poor areas in those countries. Even places like in Africa, in South America, and so on. So even during those use, of course, environmental applications, mobile phones are typically plugged in all night and often sit all night in a charger when they probably need like a couple of hours. The charger itself is typically left in the wall. Of course, we all do that, consuming power even when not charging the phone. So that is what we call wasted energy. Are we all doing okay? All right, I'm going to take it as a yes. So final, just, how can we avoid these environmental concerns? So there's, the complex interactions mentioned in the previous slide, coupled with continued growth of mobile phones, suggest that it's time for more considered and an integrated approach to be developed, for evaluating environmental outcome of the signature new media device of the 21st century. Two studies by Suckling and Lee in 2005, Govindig by 2014, have tried to consider some of the many different aspects of mobile phone creation, the use, the decommissioning, through something called life cycle analysis, LCA. So while LCA does not, typically include secondary environment implications, they try to address the key effects of the creation, the use, and the destruction of mobile phones has on this planet. So just quickly, because we don't know, like LCA is a very complicated idea, so we just want to know just the basis of it. So a full LCA is complex and requires close cooperation with the mobile phone manufacturing firms. This incentive is increasing because LCA has become a notable concern by environmental groups, and some aspects, like conflict minerals, have additional political and social implications. An LCA is also an attempt to put some structure and rigor into these inquiries, which have suffered somewhat from tendency towards simplistic or single measure analysis. The benefit that we have here of LCA is that there are international standard organization, which is the ISO, that can guide the analysis and allow for comparisons. Because if we do not, again, if we don't have standards to follow or guidelines to follow, how can we know if this mobile phone built properly or not? The downside of the results that can tend to be extremely difficult and technical for a lay person to understand, let alone make a purchase decision based on that information. Meaning that these guidelines, they could be helpful to companies, but they could be complicated to, again, the everyday today users, such as, again, me and you. And finally, we have the social and cultural implications. So some of these are common to new media generally, and applying it wired and wirelessly activity in society. So one of the important social and cultural implications of mobile devices is common to all electronic devices, which is, the working conditions of those who produce them, again, the developing countries. Let's take a look at Fairphone Company. A Fairphone company sought to develop a phone that would minimize e-waste or electronic waste. Fairphone also sought to produce their phones in factories that minimize the harm to humans during their manufacturing process. Most of large mobile phone companies, even Apple, or especially Apple actually, have been accused of producing phones in less than ideal work conditions. So I've actually read that iPhone has been, they were being manufactured in developing countries in Africa and in India, while they pay the workers less than 25 cents an hour to manufacture their phone, while they sell this phone for thousands of dollars. So of course it is ethically wrong, it is ridiculous, and all of these working conditions. So those contract manufacturers, although they're saying that we're improving the practices, they were very known for making workers work in very difficult working conditions. It has even been said, some reporters said workers have resorted to suicide because of the situations they were in. Apple and other and others, they publish what they call responsible supplier. Again, please take note of responsible supplier guidelines and produce reports, but documentary footage from inside this contract manufacturing plants have resulted in a lot of scandals, bad publicity for years. Even if you Google, go ahead and look up Apple scandal working conditions, you're gonna find so many results. Then we have the other thing we have here is the increased youth independence and autonomy that accompany mobile technologies that have been linked to popular media, numerous possibility anti-social trends. These negative trends include, mobs of young people gathering for events, coming together, the spread of sexual communication, sending inappropriate messages, simply, the use of mobile phones as a vehicle for bad manners or cheating, or, escaping schools or other responsibilities. The third one is mobile phones are blamed for the erosion of customary separations between males and females in more traditional societies. So it is, no, it's not common here, but is more concern in cultures that have long kept the sexes apart prior to marriage. So while increased freedom might be concerned for some people, the mobile phone is also implicated in some significant declines in this freedom. We noted earlier that extent to which parents are able to use mobile phones to keep even tabs and following their children. Finally, the enabling of general surveillance capabilities. Cell phones are effectively miniature tracking devices by design. In order to create a system that was manageable in terms of completing and charging for calls, the designers of cellular phone services have to know where the phone is and what is it doing. So just by design, you are giving, most like telephone companies, where are you, what are you doing right now with your phone, what you're watching, what you're listening to, and so on. And that is the end of chapter 4. Let me just grab